The massive crystal dome of Station Omega sparkled with otherworldly light as delegates from 12 advanced civilizations gathered for what they considered routine entertainment. The newest petition for membership had arrived from a backwater planet called Earth, and the assembled representatives were eager to witness another species humiliate itself before the mighty Galactic Council. Ambassador Thane adjusted his ceremonial robes while his forearms gestured dismissively at the holographic display. The primitive vessels from Earth looked like toys compared to the sleek warships that defended Council space. Their largest military craft barely held 1,000 crew members, while his own scout ships carried twice that number. "Behold the mighty human fleet," Thane announced, his voice dripping with mockery. The assembled delegates erupted in laughter that echoed through the chamber's acoustic systems. Commander Rix from the Synthetic Collective clicked his mechanical joints in what passed for amusement among his kind. "Chemical propulsion systems," Rix observed, his optical sensors scanning the data. "Metal hulls with primitive weapons. They still fire solid projectiles instead of energy beams. How delightfully primitive." The plant-like Verdani representative swayed his branches in mirth. "Their request claims they deserve membership based on their unique perspectives and experiences. What could a species that wages war against itself possibly offer our advanced civilization?" Dr. William Hayes stood at the designated platform, his simple blue uniform looking shabby next to the ornate displays of alien technology surrounding him. The laughter gradually died as he cleared his throat, but the contempt in their expressions remained unchanged. "Honored delegates," Hayes began, keeping his voice steady despite the obvious disdain, "humanity may appear technologically inferior by your standards, but we bring qualities that your civilizations may have forgotten during your long periods of peace and prosperity." "Forgotten?" Thane interrupted, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "Your species divides itself into competing nations that fight over resources. Your planet suffers from environmental destruction caused by your own short-sighted policies. Your military forces cannot even coordinate properly with each other. What wisdom could you possibly share with civilizations that have thrived for millions of years?" Hayes felt his jaw tighten but maintained his diplomatic composure. "We offer the wisdom of survival against impossible odds. Every advancement our species has made came through struggle, adaptation, and the refusal to surrender when faced with extinction." The chamber fell silent for a moment before erupting in even louder laughter. Senator Kala from the Aquatic Federation let her gills flutter with amusement. "Survival? Your species has existed for perhaps 200,000 years. The Hegemony Empire has maintained continuous civilization for over 50 million years. The Synthetic Collective has preserved perfect order for 30 million years. Indeed," added Counselor Vega, his mental voice echoing in everyone's minds. "Your largest military force maintains only 2 million active personnel. Our reserve forces alone number in the billions. Your ships carry weapons that would be considered antiques by our standards." The holographic displays shifted to show comparative statistics that made humanity look increasingly pathetic. Every number highlighted their weakness: smaller ships, fewer weapons, primitive technology, and laughably small military forces compared to the galactic powers. "Perhaps," Vega continued, "we should grant them protectorate status. They could serve as subjects for study or perhaps provide manual labor for our expanding industrial projects. A primitive species has its uses when properly supervised." The suggestion met with general approval from the assembled delegates. Hayes felt something cold settle in his stomach as he realized this diplomatic mission was about to become something far more dangerous. "I must respectfully decline any form of subjugation," Hayes said, his voice carrying a new edge that made several delegates lean forward with interest. "Humanity seeks membership as equals, not as servants or subjects." This declaration triggered another wave of laughter, but Hayes noticed something different in their expressions. The condescending amusement was transforming into something approaching genuine disdain. "Equals?" Thane's forearms moved in what might have been threatening gestures. You represent a species that cannot unite its own planet under a single government. Your nations spend more resources fighting each other than they do advancing their civilization. What makes you believe you could stand alongside powers that have conquered entire star systems? Hayes straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of his entire species' future pressing down on him. Because we have earned everything we possess through blood, sweat, and determination. We do not conquer worlds because we were given the technology to do so. We adapt to impossible circumstances, we overcome challenges that would destroy other species, and we never surrender even when victory seems impossible. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence carried a different quality, more ominous, more threatening. Never surrender? Commander Rix's mechanical voice carried what sounded like genuine curiosity mixed with threat. Even when facing forces that could obliterate your entire civilization without significant effort? Especially then, Hayes replied without hesitation. Thane leaned forward, his alien features twisted into something that might have been a smile. Very well, human. We shall give you exactly 1 year to prove that Earth deserves membership in this council. You will face 3 challenges, each designed to test your species' capabilities against the standards we maintain. Hayes felt his heart racing but kept his expression neutral. What kind of challenges? The first will test your military capabilities, Thane explained. You will face a simulated invasion of your home system by a force equivalent to what any council member could deploy for defensive purposes. You have 1 year to prepare your defenses. The second challenge will test your technological adaptability, Commander Rix added. You will be given access to basic galactic technology and must demonstrate innovation beyond mere copying of existing designs. The third will test your diplomatic abilities, Counselor Vega concluded. You must successfully negotiate a complex trade agreement with a species that has never encountered humans before, under conditions that we will determine. Hayes nodded slowly, understanding that this was likely a death sentence disguised as an opportunity. And if we succeed in all 3 challenges? Then you will be granted full membership with all the rights and responsibilities that such status entails, Thane replied. But we should warn you, Dr. Hayes, in the 3,000 years since the formation of this council, only 2 species have succeeded in these trials. Most fail catastrophically. What happens to those who fail? The expression that crossed Thane's alien features was decidedly unpleasant. They become resources for those who succeed. Their worlds, their populations, their accumulated knowledge, all become assets for the council to distribute as needed. As Hayes left the council chamber, he could still hear the echo of their laughter following him through the corridors. They saw humanity as weak, primitive, and doomed to failure. They viewed Earth as nothing more than a future source of raw materials and slave labor. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The news of the Council's ultimatum spread through Earth's governments with unprecedented speed. For the first time in human history, every nation understood that their very existence depended on working together. Ancient rivalries and petty conflicts suddenly seemed trivial when faced with the prospect of species-wide extinction. In secure facilities around the globe, world leaders gathered via encrypted communications to hear President Morrison's address. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been given 365 days to prove that humanity deserves to exist as a free species. I propose we demonstrate exactly what happens when you underestimate the human spirit. The transformation began immediately. Military commanders who had spent decades viewing each other as potential enemies now began planning humanity's defense as brothers in arms. Scientists who had competed for funding and recognition started sharing their research freely. Engineers began working around the clock to understand and improve upon the basic galactic technology the Council had provided, but perhaps most importantly, something awakened in the collective human consciousness that had been dormant for generations. The galaxy had looked at Earth and seen weakness, division, and primitive technology. They had dismissed humanity as too fractured and backward to pose any real threat. They had made the fundamental error of confusing discord with weakness. Humans fought among themselves because they were passionate, competitive, and utterly unwilling to accept defeat. Those same qualities that made them appear chaotic and primitive to the Council were exactly what would make them dangerous in a real conflict. The Council species had evolved past the need for such raw survival instincts. They had become civilized, efficient, and comfortable in their technological superiority. They had forgotten that the universe was ultimately hostile, that survival required constant vigilance and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect one's own. But humans had never forgotten. Every human carried the genetic memory of countless ancestors who had faced extinction and survived through sheer determination and ingenuity. They were the descendants of survivors, the inheritors of a species that had clawed its way to dominance on a hostile planet through pure stubborn refusal to give up. The galaxy had awakened something in humanity that had been waiting for the right moment to emerge. The fury of a species with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Soon, the Council would learn the difference between a civilized species that had forgotten how to fight and a primitive species that had never stopped fighting. In the depths of space, automated Council monitoring stations recorded increased activity in the Sol system. The readings were dismissed as primitive industrial expansion, exactly what was expected from a species desperately trying to prepare for challenges beyond their capabilities. None of the Council members bothered to analyze the data carefully. None of them noticed that the energy signatures were wrong for the technology they had provided. None of them realized that the primitive humans were already developing weapons and defensive systems that did not exist in their databases. The year of preparation was beginning, and humanity was about to remind the galaxy why apex predators should never underestimate their prey, especially when that prey had been backed into a corner with nowhere to run. 6 months after the Council's ultimatum, Earth pulsed with activity that would have been impossible to imagine just a year before. The same planet that galactic powers had dismissed as hopelessly divided now functioned as a single organism focused on survival. Deep within the Cheyenne Mountain complex, General Patricia Walsh studied holographic displays showing the unprecedented transformation of human civilization. "Status report on global integration," Walsh commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent half a year coordinating the greatest military mobilization in human history. Colonel David Park stepped forward with his data tablet, glowing with real-time information from every continent. "Ma'am, the unification process has exceeded all projections. The European Union contributed their materials science expertise. The Pacific Alliance provided manufacturing capabilities, and the African Federation offered their logistics networks. Former enemies are now working as unified allies." "What about the major powers?" Walsh asked, though she already knew the answer would be positive. The threat of extinction had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve. The Russian Federation opened their entire nuclear arsenal for conversion to ship-based weapon systems, Park replied. The Chinese committed their complete industrial capacity to the construction program. "We are producing military vessels at rates the Council probably believes impossible for a species at our technological level." Walsh nodded, but her expression remained grim. "Production numbers mean nothing if we cannot match their firepower." "Report on the Weapons Enhancement Project." Dr. Maria Santos approached the central display, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "We have achieved breakthroughs the Council never anticipated. Their dismissal of human innovation was their first critical mistake. We do not simply copy existing technology, we transform it into something entirely new." The holographic display shifted to show technical specifications that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. The basic energy weapons they provided as examples have been completely redesigned. "Our versions deliver 30% more power with twice the effective range. But those improvements pale compared to our real innovations." "Show me the fleet," Walsh ordered. The display transformed to reveal human spacecraft that bore no resemblance to the primitive vessels the Council had mocked. These were predatory machines that seemed to bristle with weapons, their hulls designed for maximum offensive capability rather than comfort or efficiency. The Fury-class destroyers are half the size of equivalent Council vessels but carry 4 times the firepower, Santos explained. The Vengeance-class cruisers can accelerate faster than anything in known galactic databases. The Roth-class battleships represent something completely unprecedented in Council experience. Walsh studied the aggressive designs with professional appreciation. These look nothing like traditional galactic architecture. Intentionally so? Santos confirmed. Every Council vessel follows the same basic principles: elegant curves, efficient space utilization, standardized weapon placement. They design ships the way they approach everything else, through committee consensus following established patterns. And we design them differently, Walsh concluded. Exactly. We build ships the way humans have always built weapons, to kill the enemy as efficiently as possible. No wasted space, no unnecessary aesthetics, no concern for crew comfort. Just pure, focused lethality designed for maximum destructive impact. Colonel Park activated another display showing personnel statistics. The recruitment and training programs have shattered all expectations. We have over 50 million volunteers for the Space Defense Force, with numbers growing daily. Every major military organization on Earth has contributed their finest personnel. The remarkable thing, Santos added, is how rapidly humans are adapting to galactic technology. The Council assumed we would need decades to understand their systems, but our engineers are already developing improvements they never considered theoretically possible. Walsh walked to the observation window, looking out at what had once been peaceful Colorado landscape. Now it was covered with massive construction facilities that operated around the clock, their lights visible even during daylight hours. Report on the Psychological Warfare Project. Completed, Park replied. The results are extremely enlightening. Dr. Reed's team has identified crucial differences between human psychology and Council species mentality that provide us with significant tactical advantages. Dr. Rebecca Reed stepped forward, her expression serious as she prepared to deliver information that would reshape their entire strategic approach. General, we have discovered something remarkable about galactic civilization. Every species in the Council has evolved beyond what we might call survival desperation. They have enjoyed millions of years of technological superiority, abundant resources, and peaceful territorial expansion. Meaning what exactly? Walsh asked. They have never faced true existential threat, Reed explained. Their conflicts are political disagreements. Their wars are territorial disputes, but none of them have ever confronted the complete annihilation of their entire species. They simply do not understand what humans become when we have nothing. Left to lose, Walsh felt a cold smile cross her face. Continue. We analyzed their recorded military conflicts spanning thousands of years. Council species fight within established parameters. They follow rules, observe conventions, calculate acceptable losses. When faced with superior numbers or advanced technology, they negotiate terms. When defeat becomes mathematically inevitable, they surrender with dignity. And humans? Humans escalate beyond all rational parameters. We adapt to impossible circumstances. We discover methods of victory that our enemies never considered remotely possible. The Council has never encountered a species that would rather die fighting than live in subjugation. The holographic display showed historical examples that made Reed's point clear. Thermopylae, the Battle of Britain, Stalingrad, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Each battle demonstrated humans fighting against overwhelming odds, often achieving victory through pure determination and creative tactics. The Council has provided us with exactly what we needed most, Reed continued. A clear existential threat, a defined enemy, and a specific timeline for victory. They have accomplished what no human leader in history ever achieved: complete global unity focused on a single objective. Walsh turned back to address the assembled team. Other projects? The biological enhancement program is fully operational, Santos reported. We cannot match their natural physical advantages, but we can augment human capabilities in ways they have never encountered. enhanced reflexes, improved sensory processing, increased cognitive speed, and perfect coordination between mind and body. Technological integration is complete, Park added. Every major population center on Earth now has manufacturing facilities capable of producing Council-level technology. We are not just building ships and weapons, we are constructing the industrial foundation for an interstellar civilization. The diplomatic network, expanding rapidly. We have established contact with 14 non-Council species and 8 have agreed to trade relationships. The Council's arrogance has created more potential enemies than they realize. Walsh absorbed this information while feeling something she had not experienced in months, genuine hope for human survival. Time. Remaining until the first challenge? 183 days, General. Then we make every single day count. Santos, I want the first Wrath-class battleship operational within 60 days. Park, double the training intensity for all personnel. Reed, begin comprehensive psychological warfare preparations. I want detailed information on how to break the morale of every Council species. As the meeting concluded, Walsh remained at the observation window, watching the endless construction continue below. The galaxy had mocked Earth's weakness and dismissed humanity as primitive and hopelessly divided. They had observed the constant conflicts and assumed humans were too fractured to pose any real threat to established galactic powers. They had made the classic error of confusing passionate disagreement with fundamental weakness. Humans fought among themselves because they were competitive, innovative, and completely unwilling to accept defeat under any circumstances. Those same qualities that made them appear chaotic and primitive to the Council were exactly what would make them lethal in actual warfare. The Council species had evolved beyond the need for such raw survival instincts. They had become civilized, efficient, and comfortable in their technological superiority. They had forgotten that the universe remained fundamentally hostile, that survival required constant vigilance and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect one's own people. But humans remembered those lessons in their very DNA. Every human carried the genetic memory of countless ancestors who had faced extinction and survived through sheer determination and ingenuity. They were the descendants of survivors, the inheritors of a species that had fought its way to planetary dominance through pure stubborn refusal to surrender. The galaxy had awakened something in humanity that had been dormant for centuries, the survival instinct of a species with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Soon, the Council would discover the difference between a civilized species that had forgotten how to fight and a primitive species that had never stopped fighting. In the depths of space, automated Council monitoring stations continued recording increased activity in the Sol system. The readings were still being dismissed as primitive industrial expansion, exactly what was expected from a species desperately trying to prepare for challenges beyond their technological capabilities. None of the Council members had bothered to analyze the data more carefully. None of them noticed that the energy signatures were completely wrong for the technology they had provided. None of them realized that the primitive humans had already begun developing weapon systems that did not exist anywhere in their comprehensive databases. The year of preparation was more than half completed, and humanity was no longer the same. Species that had stood before the Council in diplomatic shame, they were transforming into something new, something dangerous, something that would soon remind the galaxy why apex predators should never underestimate their prey. The first challenge was approaching rapidly, and with it would come the Council's first glimpse of what they had truly unleashed by threatening human extinction. They were about to learn that some species, when cornered and given time to prepare, became far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined possible. The day of humanity's first trial arrived with the cold precision of an execution. Ambassador Thane materialized in the Council chamber alongside his fellow delegates, their expressions confident as they prepared to witness what they assumed would be humanity's inevitable and humiliating defeat. The holographic display showed the Sol system, where Earth's pathetic defenders had arranged themselves in what appeared to be a desperately inadequate formation. Observe the mighty human fleet, Thane announced with obvious satisfaction to the assembled council members. The display revealed approximately 2,000 human vessels scattered across the solar system. To the galactic powers they looked like children's toys, small, crude, and utterly insufficient to defend against the simulated invasion force of 10,000 advanced warships that would soon emerge from hyperspace. Commander Rix's optical sensors flickered with mechanical amusement. They have positioned their largest vessels near their home planet, a purely defensive posture. How predictably primitive. At least they are not attempting some suicidal attack, Senator Kala observed, her aquatic features rippling with what? Passed for laughter among her species. That demonstrates some minimal wisdom, even if it will not save them from destruction. What the Council could not see was the complete transformation that had occurred aboard every human vessel. The crew members were no longer the same species that had been dismissed as weak and primitive. Months of biological enhancement had turned them into something unprecedented in galactic history. On the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, enhanced reflexes allowed the crew to process information at superhuman speeds. Their neural interfaces connected them directly to ship systems, creating a level of coordination that no Council species had ever achieved. They moved with mechanical precision but retained the creative chaos that made human tactics so unpredictable. "Time to enemy contact?" asked the ship's commander, her enhanced vision already analyzing tactical data that would have overwhelmed a normal human mind. 18 minutes, replied the tactical officer, his augmented neural pathways monitoring dozens of ship systems simultaneously. "All vessels report ready for combat operations." The commander studied the tactical display with professional interest. The Council's simulated invasion force was massive, exactly the kind of overwhelming numerical superiority that had allowed galactic civilizations to dominate for millions of years. But they had made a critical error in assuming that humans would fight according to established galactic conventions. "Signal to all vessels," the commander ordered. "Initiate Protocol Omega." Across the human fleet, ships began moving in patterns that would have appeared impossible to any Council observer. The careful defensive formations dissolved into what looked like complete chaos, but it was chaos with deadly purpose. Each vessel had been given specific autonomy, specific objectives, and complete freedom to achieve them through any means necessary. The Council's invasion force emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their ships arranged in the standard galactic battle configuration that had proven effective for thousands of years. The artificial intelligence controlling the invasion fleet immediately began standard scanning procedures and established communication protocols. "Unknown vessels," the AIS voice broadcast on all frequencies, "you are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender immediately and your planet will be spared unnecessary destruction." The response came not in words but in concentrated weapons fire. The human fleet had modified their energy weapons to operate in the infrared spectrum, making them invisible to standard Council sensors. The first devastating volley struck the invasion force before they even realized they were under attack. 3 Council vessels exploded instantly, their defensive shields completely overwhelmed by weapon systems that delivered 30% more destructive energy than their databases indicated was theoretically possible. The perfect formation wavered as ship commanders tried to understand what had happened. "Impossible," Thane muttered in the Council chamber. "Those energy signatures do not match the technology we provided them. They have modified our basic designs." Commander Rix observed, his mechanical voice carrying what might have been surprise. But such advanced modifications should have required decades of research and development. On the battlefield, the invasion force's AI was rapidly adapting to the unexpected threat. The Council ships began spreading out into a more flexible formation, their own weapon systems charging for return fire. But the humans had already moved, their smaller and more agile vessels darting between the larger Council ships, like predators hunting helpless prey. The human commander watched her tactical display as the battle unfolded exactly according to their carefully developed plans. "Begin Phase 2, signal the Volf packs." Throughout the solar system, groups of human destroyers began executing maneuvers that no Council species had ever attempted. They moved in coordinated swarms, striking at the massive capital ships with hit-and-run tactics that would have been impossible without the enhanced reflexes and neural interfaces of their crews. The destroyer group, led by another enhanced captain, demonstrated the new human approach to space combat. Instead of engaging in the traditional long-range energy duels that Council species preferred, they closed to point-blank range and unleashed concentrated firepower that could penetrate even the strongest defensive shields through sheer destructive volume. "Target their engine sections," the captain commanded, her enhanced vision allowing her to identify structural weak points in Council ship designs. Remember, they build for efficiency and comfort, not for damage resistance. The human destroyers danced around the massive Council battleship, their weapons systematically carving through armor that had been designed to withstand the polite, long-range combat preferred by galactic civilization. The Council ship's commander, programmed with standard tactical responses, could not adapt quickly enough to the humans' aggressively close combat tactics. In the Council chamber, the delegates watched in growing alarm as their supposedly invincible invasion force began taking serious casualties. The neat formations that had conquered dozens of worlds were being systematically destroyed by human tactics that seemed to ignore every established rule of civilized warfare. "They are not fighting like any species we have previously encountered," Counselor Vega observed, his mental voice carrying unprecedented uncertainty. "They are not attempting to disable our ships or force negotiated surrender. They are trying to achieve complete destruction of all enemy forces." "Savages," Thane muttered, but his forearms were tensed with what might have been genuine worry. "They fight like primitive animals without any understanding of proper military conduct." What the Council failed to understand was that humans had never learned to fight like civilized beings. Every human military tradition was built on the fundamental principle of total warfare, not the limited conflicts that galactic species engaged in, but the complete annihilation of the enemy's ability to continue fighting. The human commander watched as the battle entered its final phase. The Council's invasion force, despite their overwhelming numerical superiority, was being systematically dismantled by human tactics they had never encountered in millions of years of galactic warfare. But the most devastating demonstration was yet to come. "Signal the Wrath," the commander ordered. "Time for the grand finale." The battleship Wrath had remained hidden behind Earth's moon throughout the entire battle. Now it emerged, its massive form dwarfing even the largest Council vessels. But it was not the ship's size that made it truly dangerous. It was the experimental weapon system it carried. "Fire the Annihilator," commanded the Wrath's captain. The weapon that erupted from the battleship's forward section was unlike anything in the Council's extensive databases. It was a focused antimatter beam that could cut through multiple enemy ships in a single devastating shot. The energy requirements were enormous, but humans had solved that problem by converting their ship's entire power core into a single-use weapon. The beam carved through the center of the Council's formation, destroying 8 ships instantly and crippling a dozen more. It was a weapon that no Council species would have ever developed because it required sacrificing the ship that fired it, a trade-off that galactic civilizations would never consider militarily acceptable. But humans had built the Wrath specifically to make that ultimate sacrifice. As the great ship's power core overloaded and exploded, taking several nearby enemy vessels with it, the surviving Council ships found themselves facing a human fleet that had just demonstrated they were willing to sacrifice anything to achieve total victory. The simulated invasion force, reduced to fewer than 3,000 operational vessels, began attempting to retreat according to standard military protocols. The artificial intelligence controlling the fleet tried to negotiate terms for withdrawal, assuming the humans would follow established galactic conventions. "Negative," came the cold human response. "Unconditional annihilation?" The human fleet pursued the retreating Council forces across the entire solar system, hunting down every single vessel until none remained operational. It was a demonstration of a type of warfare that galactic civilization had forgotten existed, total, merciless, and utterly without any possibility of negotiated compromise. In the council chamber, the delegates sat in stunned silence as the tactical display showed the complete destruction of their invasion force. The humans had not simply won a defensive victory. They had achieved something that had not happened in galactic warfare for thousands of years: the complete annihilation of a numerically superior enemy force. "Impossible," Thane whispered, his voice completely lacking its usual arrogant confidence. They were outnumbered 5-1 by superior technology. They fought as if their entire planet's survival depended on victory, Commander Rix observed with mechanical precision. Because it did. Senator Kalla's aquatic features rippled with what might have been fear. Those weapon systems, those tactical approaches, they are not simply modifications of our provided technology. They have created something entirely unprecedented. Ambassador Hayes, who had remained silent throughout the entire battle, finally spoke with quiet dignity. "Honored delegates, humanity has successfully completed the first challenge. We have defended our star system against the prescribed invasion force." "You did not defend," Thane replied, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "You completely annihilated every enemy vessel. There is a significant difference." "Yes," Hayes agreed with perfect calm. "There is indeed a difference. You wanted to test our military capabilities. We have demonstrated that humanity wages war to achieve total victory, not to reach negotiated settlements or acceptable compromises." The council delegates exchanged glances that conveyed volumes of unspoken communication. They had expected the humans to lose spectacularly, but they had also expected them to fight according to the civilized conventions that govern galactic warfare. The complete destruction of a superior force was not just a military victory, it was a terrifying psychological statement about human nature. "The first challenge has been completed successfully," Hayes continued with the same calm dignity. "We await notification of the second trial." As the council session ended and the delegates returned to their home systems, they carried with them a new and disturbing understanding of what they had awakened. Humanity had not simply passed their first test. They had demonstrated that they represented something the galaxy had not seen in millions of years, a species that fought, as if their very survival depended on achieving total victory. Because it did. 3 months after humanity's devastating military demonstration, the Council's second challenge arrived with considerably less fanfare than the first. Ambassador Thane materialized in the United Nations headquarters looking notably less confident than during their previous encounter. His 4 arms carried a sealed container that hummed with barely contained energy, and his usual arrogant demeanor had been replaced by something approaching caution. "The second trial will test your species' capacity for genuine innovation beyond mere copying of existing galactic technology," he announced to the assembled human representatives. The sealed container was placed carefully on the conference table, its alien metal surface reflecting the room's lights in strange patterns. Dr. Santos, now serving as Earth's chief technology officer, examined the mysterious device with her enhanced optical implants. "What exactly are we expected to accomplish with this technology?" "Demonstrate true innovation," Thane replied, his voice lacking its previous condescending tone. "Every species that has successfully joined the Council required between 50 and 200 years to develop meaningful improvements to basic galactic systems. You have exactly 6 months to show us something we have never seen before." What Thane carefully avoided mentioning was that the quantum processing matrix contained within the device had been deliberately limited in its capabilities. The Council had provided humanity with technology that was already considered obsolete by current galactic standards, expecting them to struggle with even the most basic implementation. Hayes studied the alien ambassador's carefully neutral expression. "And if we succeed in this challenge, then you will have proven that humanity can contribute something valuable to galactic civilization beyond manual labor and raw materials," Thane replied with measured precision. "But understand clearly, Dr. Hayes, this is not simply a matter of making our existing technology function more efficiently. We require genuine innovation, something that would be genuinely useful to civilizations that are millions of years more advanced than your own. The council delegation departed immediately after delivering the challenge, leaving humanity to face what appeared to be an impossible task. The container was transported under heavy security to the vastly expanded research facility that had been constructed beneath the former Swiss Alps. The entire mountain range had been hollowed out to create the largest technology laboratory in human history. Dr. Santos assembled her enhanced research team in the facility's main laboratory, where the quantum processing matrix had been carefully extracted and subjected to detailed analysis. The alien device was undeniably beautiful in its crystalline efficiency, a complex structure that seemed to bend light around itself while humming with barely contained power. Initial assessment results? Santos asked her lead researcher, Dr. Kim, whose enhanced neural interfaces allowed her to process the incredibly complex mathematics involved in real-time analysis. The computational capabilities are far beyond anything we have previously achieved, Kim replied, her augmented brain systems working at superhuman speeds. But the underlying architecture is completely alien to human design principles and thought patterns. Which is exactly the point, Santos observed. They want us to demonstrate innovation beyond simple copying. So, we are not going to try to understand their architectural approach. We are going to create something entirely different. The approach that humanity took to this seemingly impossible challenge would have been inconceivable to any council species. Instead of studying the alien technology to understand how it functioned, they began by questioning why it worked that way and whether fundamentally better alternatives might exist. Dr. Chun, leading the quantum mechanics research team, made the first crucial breakthrough. The Council's matrix uses quantum entanglement to process information simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. The approach is undeniably elegant, but it is also severely limited by the physical constraints of their crystalline structural components. Limited in what specific ways? Santos asked. They process information sequentially through quantum states, even when operating across multiple dimensions simultaneously. It is incredibly fast by their technological standards, but it remains fundamentally linear in its thinking patterns. They process concept A, then concept B, then concept C, regardless of how many dimensions they are operating across. Santos felt genuine excitement building for the first time since the challenge began. And human consciousness operates differently? Human consciousness is naturally chaotic in its processing patterns, Chan explained enthusiastically. We routinely process multiple information streams simultaneously. We make intuitive leaps between seemingly unrelated concepts. We connect ideas that should have no logical relationship. The Council's matrix was designed for purely logical, sequential processing, exactly the opposite of how human creativity and innovation actually function. The breakthrough came when the research team stopped trying to improve the Council's existing technology and instead asked what would happen if they designed quantum processing systems to work like enhanced human brains. The result was something that no galactic civilization had ever conceived possible. A quantum matrix that could process information in patterns that were inherently unpredictable and creative. It is not just faster than their system, Dr. Kim explained to the assembled research team. It is fundamentally different in its approach to problem solving, where the Council's matrix follows predetermined logical pathways. Our design makes conceptual leaps that defy conventional logic. It does not just process existing information, it creates entirely new connections that should not theoretically exist. The implications were staggering beyond anything the team had initially imagined. The human quantum matrix did not simply compute mathematical problems. It genuinely innovated solutions. It could analyze complex challenges and generate approaches that no purely logical processing system would ever consider attempting. It was human creativity distilled into pure technological form, but the real innovation emerged when Dr. Santos realized that their matrix design could be scaled exponentially. Instead of building larger and more powerful individual units, They could network multiple matrices together to create a collective intelligence that combined the raw computational power of galactic technology with the creative chaos that defined human thought patterns. We are not simply improving their existing technology, Santos explained to Hayes during a crucial progress briefing. We have created something entirely unprecedented. A hybrid system that thinks with human creativity but processes information with galactic computational speed and precision. The first practical application came when the networked matrices were given the task of analyzing the Council's own technology systems. Within mere hours, they had identified dozens of critical inefficiencies and suggested improvements that would have taken Council scientists centuries to develop through conventional research methods. The defensive shields on their warships, Dr. Chun reported with obvious excitement, are designed to deflect energy weapons by creating complex quantum interference patterns. But they are completely vulnerable to rapid frequency modulation attacks, something our chaotic processing system identified almost immediately. They're faster-than-light travel systems, Dr. Kim added, use a fixed mathematical relationship between space and time dimensions. But our matrices discovered 17 different ways to modify that fundamental relationship for dramatically improved efficiency and speed. And their weapons technology, Dr. Santos concluded, is designed to engage predictable targets that follow logical defensive patterns. Against the chaotic and unpredictable tactical approaches that humans naturally employ, their weapons are significantly less effective than they appear. The 6-month deadline approached rapidly, with humanity having achieved something that was genuinely unprecedented in galactic history. They had not simply improved existing Council technology, they had created hybrid systems that combined the computational advantages of both civilizations while transcending the limitations of each. Dr. Santos stood before the returning Council delegation in the same conference room where the challenge had been issued. The device sitting on the table appeared identical to the quantum matrix they had originally provided, but appearances could be devastatingly deceptive. Honored delegates, Santos began with quiet confidence, humanity has successfully completed the second challenge. We have developed innovations that go far beyond mere copying of your existing technological systems. Thane's forearms moved. In what might have been skepticism mixed with growing concern. Demonstrate these claimed improvements. Santos activated the modified device, and the conference room immediately filled with complex holographic displays showing mathematical equations, engineering schematics, and computational models that defied conventional understanding. But these were not simply improvements to existing galactic technology, they represented entirely new approaches to fundamental scientific principles. The quantum processing matrix you provided, Santos explained calmly, was designed for sequential and purely logical information processing. Highly efficient by galactic standards, but severely limited by the constraints of predictable thought patterns. We have created something fundamentally different. The holographic displays showed the human hybrid system in active operation, processing information in patterns that seemed to dance chaotically between order and creative chaos. The Council delegates watched in growing amazement as the matrix generated solutions to complex problems they had not even asked it to attempt solving. It is not simply faster than your original design, Santos continued. It is genuinely creative in ways that purely logical systems cannot achieve. It makes connections between seemingly unrelated concepts that logical processing would never consider. It can analyze your shield technology and immediately identify previously unknown vulnerabilities. It can examine your propulsion systems and suggest improvements that would require millennia of conventional research. Commander Rix's optical sensors flickered rapidly as his mechanical brain processed the unprecedented implications. This appears to be generating completely novel solutions rather than optimizing existing approaches through conventional methods. That is precisely correct, Santos replied. It thinks like an enhanced human brain, chaotically, unpredictably, creatively. We have not simply improved your technology, We have created an entirely new form of artificial intelligence that combines galactic computational power with human innovative thinking. The demonstration continued for several hours with the hybrid matrices solving increasingly complex theoretical problems and generating innovations that left the council delegates completely speechless. They had expected humanity to struggle with basic implementation of technology that was already considered obsolete by current galactic standards. Instead, they witnessed the birth of a revolutionary form of artificial intelligence that could potentially out-innovate civilizations millions of years older than Earth. The implications of this development, Counselor Vega observed, his mental voice carrying unprecedented uncertainty, are staggering beyond measure. This technology could revolutionize every single aspect of galactic civilization, or completely destabilize everything we have built, Thane added quietly. A form of intelligence that thinks chaotically, that makes unpredictable connections between concepts, that generates genuinely novel solutions. This could be dangerous beyond our ability to control or predict. Hayes, who had remained diplomatically silent throughout the technical demonstration, finally spoke with measured precision. The second challenge has been completed successfully. We have demonstrated innovation far beyond copying existing systems. We await notification of the third and final trial. As the council delegation prepared to depart, Thane approached Hayes privately for what appeared to be an urgent conversation. Dr. Hayes, what you have shown us today fundamentally changes everything we thought we understood. This hybrid intelligence technology, it is not simply an improvement over existing systems. It represents a fundamental shift in how the universe itself could be understood and manipulated. Is that problematic for the Council? Hayes asked with careful neutrality. It could be catastrophically problematic, Thane replied with unusual honesty. The Council has maintained galactic stability for millions of years through predictable and logical technological progression. What you have created is inherently unpredictable in its capabilities. It could lead to advances beyond our wildest imagination, or it could destabilize everything we have spent millennia building. Hayes studied the alien ambassador's obviously troubled expression. Are you reconsidering humanity's potential membership? No, Thane said after a long and thoughtful pause. We are reconsidering everything else about how galactic civilization functions. As the Council delegation departed Earth, they carried with them not just news of humanity's unprecedented success, but a fundamental question that would reshape their understanding of galactic civilization. What happened when you introduced creative chaos into a universe that had been ordered and predictable for millions of years? The answer would come with the third challenge. But already the galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity represented something far more significant than they had initially realized. They were not just another primitive species seeking membership in an established galactic order. They were a force of fundamental change that could transform the very nature of civilization itself. And that realization terrified the Council more than any military defeat ever could. The third challenge arrived not as a diplomatic opportunity, but as an ultimatum that shattered every pretense of fair testing. The Council fleet materialized throughout the Sol system without warning, their warships taking aggressive positions around Earth while Ambassador Thane's delegation appeared in the United Nations building with expressions that had transformed from condescending amusement to cold hostility. The third trial has been fundamentally modified, Thane announced to the emergency session of human leadership, his forearms gesturing toward holographic displays showing Council ships positioned for immediate attack. Your innovations have been deemed too dangerous for galactic stability. The diplomatic challenge has been replaced with a non-negotiable requirement: immediate surrender and complete technological submission. General Walsh, now commanding Earth's unified military forces, rose slowly from her seat. That was not part of our original agreement. Agreements can be modified when circumstances change, Thane replied without emotion, his alien features showing no trace of the uncertainty he had displayed during the previous challenge. You have created technology that fundamentally threatens the established galactic order. You will immediately surrender your hybrid quantum matrices and submit to comprehensive technological oversight, or face the complete consequences. Hayes felt something ice-cold settle in his stomach as he realized the true nature of their situation. And if we refuse this ultimatum, then Earth will be classified as a hostile entity and dealt with accordingly, Thane stated with mechanical precision. You have exactly 72 hours to make your decision and comply with our requirements. The Council delegation departed immediately, leaving humanity with a choice that was not really a choice at all. Within hours, every human leader understood that they faced not a diplomatic challenge, but a carefully planned betrayal designed to eliminate the threat that human innovation represented to galactic civilization. President Morrison addressed the world through emergency broadcasts that reached every enhanced human on and off the planet. Citizens of Earth, the galaxy has revealed its true intentions. They never intended to accept us as equals. They fear what we have become, and they have decided to destroy us rather than face the changes we represent. The response was immediate and devastating in its unity. Every human military force, every enhanced soldier, every scientist and engineer understood that they faced the complete extinction of their species. But instead of despair, something else awakened in the collective human consciousness, something that the Council had failed to understand despite months of observation. General Walsh stood in the command center, deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of Council ships throughout the solar system. The enemy had positioned themselves for what they assumed would be a quick and decisive victory against a primitive species that had gotten dangerously above their station. They made a critical error, Walsh observed to her assembled commanders. They gave us 72 hours to prepare, and they positioned their forces assuming we would fight like a conventional galactic civilization. Colonel Park studied the tactical displays with enhanced vision that could process information at superhuman speeds. Their formation is perfect for defeating any known galactic military force, but they are not facing a galactic military force. Signal. All vessels, Walsh commanded. Initiate Protocol Armageddon. Across the solar system, human ships that had been carefully hidden behind planets, asteroids, and space stations suddenly revealed themselves. The Council had counted approximately 2,000 human vessels during their previous observation. They now discovered that humanity had been concealing over 10,000 ships, many equipped with weapon systems that existed nowhere. In galactic databases, the Council fleet found itself facing not the desperate defensive action they had anticipated, but a carefully planned counterattack that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. Human military planners had always assumed that the challenges were merely a prelude to eventual betrayal, and they had prepared accordingly. Admiral Torres, commanding the human fleet from the massive battleship Retribution, watched as the battle unfolded according to plans that had been developed during humanity's year of preparation. They expected us to surrender or fight defensively. They have no idea what they actually unleashed. The first wave of human attacks came from directions the Council had not even considered possible. Ships emerged from within planetary atmospheres, from behind solar flares, and from positions that should have been impossible to reach without detection. The Council's advanced sensors had been designed to detect conventional spacecraft, not the hybrid stealth technology that humanity had developed. Begin Phase 1, Torres commanded. Show them what happens when you threaten human extinction. The human fleet struck with a coordination and ferocity that defied every principle of galactic warfare, where Council species fought according to established rules and conventions. Humans fought with the desperate creativity of a species facing complete annihilation. Their tactics were not just unconventional, they were utterly alien to everything the Council understood about military conflict. Human ships equipped with the hybrid quantum matrices could predict and counter Council tactics before they were fully implemented. The creative chaos of human-designed artificial intelligence allowed them to generate solutions to tactical problems in real time, adapting faster than any purely logical system could possibly respond. Target their command vessels, Torres ordered. Remove their ability to coordinate, then systematically destroy everything else. The Council fleet, despite their overwhelming technological advantages, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable pattern of behavior. Human ships would sacrifice themselves without hesitation to destroy larger enemy vessels. Human commanders made tactical decisions that seemed utterly irrational until their devastating effectiveness became apparent. In the Council chamber. Emergency. Sessions were being held as reports of the battle reached the galactic powers. What they heard defied everything they thought they understood about human capabilities. Impossible, Thane declared as he received updates from the Sol system. They were supposed to surrender or be quickly defeated. How are they not only resisting but actually winning against our fleet? Commander Rix processed the incoming data. With mechanical precision, they are not fighting like any species we have encountered. They appear to be willing to accept any level of casualties to achieve victory. Their tactical approaches make no logical sense, yet they are proving devastatingly effective. They are fighting like their entire species depends on victory. Senator Kala observed with what might have been growing fear. Because it does? The truth was becoming clear to the Council delegates, though they were reluctant to acknowledge it. Humanity was not fighting a military engagement. They were fighting for their right to exist as a free species. Every human understood that defeat meant not just political subjugation, but the complete end of human independence and innovation. Back in the Sol system, the battle had entered its final phase. The Council fleet, despite beginning with superior numbers and technology, was being systematically destroyed by human tactics that seemed to come from pure desperation transmuted into tactical genius. Signal the Omega Protocol, Torres commanded. From the bridge of the Retribution as her ship closed for the final engagement with the Council flagship. Throughout the human fleet, ships began implementing the ultimate expression of human military philosophy, total warfare without any consideration for personal survival. The Council fleet found itself facing an enemy that would rather die fighting than accept any form of defeat or negotiated surrender. The final exchange came when the Retribution, her hull breached and her power systems failing, closed to point-blank range with the Council flagship and detonated her entire antimatter reserves. The explosion vaporized both ships instantly, but it also eliminated the last organized resistance in the Council fleet. The surviving Council vessels, scattered and leaderless, attempted to retreat according to standard military protocols. But the human fleet pursued them with relentless determination, hunting down every enemy ship until none remained operational in the Sol system. When the battle ended, Earth stood victorious but forever changed. They had not simply defeated a Council fleet. They had demonstrated that human fury, when fully unleashed, could overcome any technological advantage through sheer determination and tactical innovation. Ambassador Hayes stood before the emergency council session that had been called to address the unprecedented defeat. His simple uniform was unchanged, but everything else about the situation had been fundamentally transformed. Honored delegates, Hayes began with quiet dignity. Humanity has responded to your ultimatum. We have demonstrated that we will not accept subjugation under any circumstances. You have destroyed an entire Council fleet, Thane replied, his voice carrying a mixture of rage and what might have been fear. This is an act of war against galactic civilization. No, Hayes corrected calmly. This was an act of self-defense, against attempted genocide. You came to our system with warships and demanded our surrender. We responded accordingly. The Council chamber fell silent as the delegates processed the implications of what had occurred. Humanity had not just passed. Their trials, they had demonstrated that they represented something genuinely dangerous to the established galactic order. What do you want? Counselor Vega asked, his mental voice carrying unprecedented uncertainty. Hayes smiled with an expression that would have been terrifying to anyone who truly understood its implications. We want exactly what we originally requested. Membership in the Galactic Council as equals, with full rights and responsibilities. And if we refuse? Then you will discover what happens when you make an enemy of a species that fights wars to achieve total victory, Hayes replied with perfect calm. We have demonstrated our military capabilities, our technological innovation, and our complete unwillingness to accept subjugation. The choice of what happens next belongs entirely to you. The galaxy had mocked Earth's weakness and dismissed humanity as primitive and divided. They had awakened something that had been dormant in human consciousness for generations, the fury of a species that would rather burn down the universe than accept extinction. Now they would learn to live with the consequences of that choice, because humanity had proven beyond any doubt that they were no longer the weak and primitive species that had first approached the Council. They had become something far more dangerous, a united human civilization with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The galaxy would never be the same again,